What's up and welcome to another episode of Brando's World of XGames. Hope you like the new set. Studio completely dialed in now. Still a work in progress, but I'm glad that our next guest gets to christen it here. Crazy that we finally get this guy on. We've been chasing him down for a little while, but he's been busy. Despite COVID-19, we do have someone very busy because he just became a father for the third time. Congratulations to Mikey Taylor, who joins us now. How's dad life times 3, my friend?
You know what? It's easier than we expected. I thought it was going to be full-blown chaos. And it's actually been a confident booster that we could do this again. He's like, we lucked out. We just had an easy one. So it hasn't been as tough as we thought.
Well, and you have 2 built-in babysitters now. That's the thing you don't think about with the third one.
And as far as timing goes, it couldn't have been better. Our oldest 2 are already kind of self-sufficient and love having a new kid. So it's been good.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to get to talking with you. You're really a different guest than we probably have had on this show, because I think some of the things you've done off of your skateboard might be even more impactful, especially in the long term, not just for you, but for the advice that you're giving out to others. So I'm really excited to just go on this journey with you. But before we do that, we start off every interview with the hot box.
Okay.
How fast can you answer 20 questions? And hopefully we can get the standings up here. Fabiola de Silva is leading the way, I think, followed by Mariah Duran. They are the top of the standings right now. So if you're ready, Mikey Taylor, I'd like for you to enter the hot box.
Go ahead. Give it to me.
All right. Let me get the clock going. Stopwatch, reset, and start. Fries or tater tots?
Fries.
Favorite fast food?
In-N-Out.
First CD you ever bought?
Nirvana.
Favorite Will Ferrell movie?
Step Brothers.
Favorite style of beer?
IPA.
First concert you ever went to?
Kings of Leon.
Wow. Favorite holiday food?
Thanksgiving.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
What is your favorite Harry Potter movie, if you have one?
Nope.
That's okay. Favorite city to skate on the planet?
Barcelona.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Cheerios.
What was your first skateboard?
Powell.
Favorite person to skate with, P-Rod or Sean Malto?
Ty.
What skater did you look up to growing up?
Eric Costin.
Yep. Have you ever grown a beard?
No.
Favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni, pineapple, and jalapeno.
That sounds like 3. Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Best financial advice you could give someone here in 2020?
Spend less than you make.
Best skater to ever come out of Newbury Park?
Just in case.
Better to invest in a single family home or multifamily?
Multifamily.
I knew you were going to say that. And we stop a minute 57:51. Boys, Sean and Sean in the back. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we might have a new leader in the clubhouse, and his name is Mikey Taylor. Nothing official yet. Nothing official yet. Congratulations. You have passed the hot box, my friend.
Here we go.
So, Mikey, I want to start off with where you're at right now, and we'll kind of work our way back, because I think you've got such an amazing journey. I think there's still some people who are like, oh yeah, I remember Mikey Taylor. He was one of my favorite skaters, or I remember his part, or I had his DC. I had his board. I had his DCs. I saw him at Street League. And now if you check out Mikey Taylor's Instagram, it's a lot of family stuff, but it's a lot of financial, real estate, commune capital. So talk to us kind of just the through line of what you're into and kind of top of line stuff right now.
Okay. So, people who discover me now, who knew me back then, it's mixed between what the hell are you doing? This is weird. And some, hey, this is pretty cool. So it's all over the board. Basically, what I do now, I started a company that is in the investment world. We run a real estate fund. So people invest into our fund. We take that money, go find opportunity either in multifamily apartments or storage units. And then with that opportunity, we target a return back to our investors. And then part of our purpose is educating people about how money works. So a lot of the content you see on my social media is a lot to do with kind of the foundation of it, the starting point, and how to put yourself in a position to invest. So ultimately, you get down the road to make the decision on if you need to work again. Is that in a nutshell? And it is very different than pro skateboarding.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a slight departure. When did you have the inkling of like, I think maybe you it's one thing to sort of live with principles of like, oh, I want to be careful with my money, or, I would like to invest. There's a lot of professional athletes that are thinking about those things in the prime of their career. At what point did it occur to you, this is something that you might pursue later on in life and that you might actually enjoy doing?
So, a lot further down the road. In the beginning, and it really, thankfully, was because of my dad. My dad was a little bit concerned about me being a skateboarder and not going to college. And what I thought I was going to be was a lawyer. So it was such a big departure that it freaked him out. And so part of him feeling comfortable was me being introduced to the person that was helping my dad and our family's finance. And in that introduction, I had somebody kind of help me with my money. And that was just starting off because of him. And then it led into me just kind of being scared about what life looked like after skateboarding. Because at that point, not going to college felt like I was going to be starting at a disadvantage once my career ended. So I just held on to everything this guy told me as truth. His name was Randy. It was just, you tell me and I will follow. I will listen to you, because I don't want to I don't want my life to be challenged in my mid 30s instead of getting at it in my early 20s like everybody else. And so it was just out of kind of fear. And then as I got older and going through the experience that we had with St. Archer, I really started enjoying kind of the inner working of business. It wasn't investing at this point. I just liked business, and I liked that we had to raise money to create our vision and then taking it all the way towards to the finish line of selling the company and then investors making a return. I just started liking that process of how money worked. And so that's kind of what led me to wanting to do this now full time. But it wasn't until right around 30, 31, where I was like, ooh, maybe this is what I do afterward. Up until then, it was just be smart with my money and skateboard.
You brought up St. Archer, and certainly beer drinkers, particularly those in Southern California, need no introduction to St. Archer Brew, and certainly the skateboarding and action sports community. That was a really interesting concept that you co-founded. Is that fair to say? Correct. Just in terms of the investment group and the part owners, and all of a sudden it looked like you guys were doing something a little unorthodox as far as how you were reaching out, especially to like the action sports and like arts community, and how that created somewhat a brand awareness. And also, I suppose it sounds like there was some equity there, but how did that come to be? And then also that, that ends up being truly a success story for you guys in the long run.
Yeah. So it all happened. I was randomly on a trip with a friend who was in the surf world. He was a surf filmmaker. And he wanted to recreate a movie he had made in surfing, where he took the train from San Diego all the way up to the coast of San Francisco and stopped at every city along the way, met a pro surfer, and they surfed a surf spot. he wanted to do that with me at skateboarding. And so we drove down to San Diego to start the film. And while we were there, I got a call from Mike Mo, who's another pro skateboarder, as we all know, with the idea to create Glassy. And he called me and asked if I wanted to do it with him. And I hung up the phone and I looked at Josh, who was the filmmaker. And I was like, hey, dude, my friend wants to do a sunglass company. What do you think? And that conversation led to a bigger conversation generally around the idea that in our world of action sports, we're always recreating companies that already exist, not in a sense of recreating brands, but we feel comfortable about a grip tape company that turns into a clothing company, so that we just keep doing that process. Or there's a watch company that does well, so we just keep recreating watches. And that led to us go, what if we could do something that's totally different from our world? Like, what if we could create something that has never been done inside of our community? And later that night, that led to him spitting out this idea, why don't we do beer? No one's done beer. And so the next morning we woke up, abandoned the film, just started driving home. And he was like, dude, who could we call to help us invest? Call your friend Paul. So I called P-Rod. We met him off Canaan, pitched this idea that we came up with the night before. And that started the year-long journey of trying to figure out what this even meant. And then as we got close to basically opening doors, a lot of our investors were friends and family. And for Paul and I, a lot of our friends were skateboarders. And then for Josh, a lot of his friends were surfers. So we kind of looked and went, dude, we have a built-in audience amongst all our investors with social media. Like, what if we could just market this thing on Instagram and we don't even need a marketing budget? We're trying to save money, dude. And so 150 grand that we could slash on a marketing budget was massive for us. So we had this idea that we could promote it on social. And so we all kind of communicated what we were out to do. And it just was such a good time in a sense of, it was before influencer marketing, and all of us came together with not only the skate community, but the surf world, snow world, art, music. And it was like the perfect timing, a perfect storm.
Were you guys impressed, or was that part of your plan at how quickly you guys were able to essentially sell that business?
No, it went way faster than we thought. When we did our original business plan, I believe we had a model of profitability at somewhere around like year 7 or 8, but this was a 10-year plus timeline. And the first year, we basically had to throw out the business plan and start whole new projections, because the second we opened doors, our problem was keeping up with demand, which we didn't think was going to be the case. And then all the way to the point of us selling it, that was our challenge. We can't keep up. We can't keep up. We can't keep up. So a little bit different than I think a lot of startups, where you're racing for exposure. You're just trying to get your message out there, and it feels like you're kind of swimming upstream until the point where it's like, holy crap, there's people, it's working. For us, it was like, it was working before we even had product in the line. So it was a unique situation there.
You know, I love that story. And what's really impressive to me, and I hope that people watching at any age, I think sometimes, especially even with like real estate and investing, that question comes up with like, well, I don't know that world, or I've never gotten into that world. I think what you just cited is a prime example of like, where there's a will, there's a way. You're talking about a really small think tank that came together and was like, hey, why don't we do this? None of you guys are brewmasters. None of you guys worked for a beer company. You just thought, hey, there's a void here. Can we sort of disrupt it in our certain way? And you met the right people, and lo and behold, a success story. That's amazing.
I'm going to tell everybody listening the biggest hack that I have learned up until this point. The only difference between people who are successful and people who aren't is the people who are successful just do it. That's it. It's not brains. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to do it. And I'm telling you, continuously doing it is the only difference between those who don't. I mean, we're a perfect example of it. It's like, dude, I'm just a skater. There's nothing special about me. I graduated high school, and then all my world was skateboarding for almost 2 decades. And it's like, we start a company, we do something else. Now I'm in like the investment world. I definitely took a different path to get here. And it's, I think, a testament that if I could do it, anyone else can,
Yeah. No question. You're preaching to the choir, man, because I'm in the same world. And, my family, we uprooted. We came to Austin when XGames moved here, fell in love with the city. Next thing you know, we're investing, we're building, doing new construction here in a ripe hot market. But that's another story for another podcast. I want to know this, because you were part of the original group that skated in Street League at the beginning of Street League skateboarding, Rob Dyrdek's vision, and what an amazing time that was. What was it like, especially for someone like you who wasn't a contest skateboarder, to get sort of queued up with this conversation? Obviously, Rob and you have a tight-knit relationship. But what was that selling point like? What was that conversation like of, hey, I'm starting this thing and I think I want you on board?
So Rob, he has a gift to just like blow a sales pitch out, right? And so, Rob was like, dude, Mikey, I'm coming to your house. I'm like, okay, comes to my house, and it's this one, right? Mikey, dude, we're going to change the face of skateboarding. We're going to make skateboarding the craziest thing we've ever seen. And, he's super excited when he talks, and, you're sitting here looking at him like in a trance. Okay. And so I was just like, okay, I'll do it. Like, cool. And then I signed this thing, and of course it's Rob, which he's like, he goes above and beyond. And then sure enough, I get this like plaque on the wall, and it's like first member of Street League and all of this stuff. And it was crazy, man. It was those first 3 years were something that was pretty special. It was pretty cool. Like, they're trying to figure this thing out. We're like the first group. I'm not a contest skater, so skating in front of 5,000 to 10,000 people is incredibly foreign for me, but it was cool, man. It was such a fun time.
Yeah, I thought about, particular guys like yourself who weren't contest guys, and now Rob was trying to bring competitive skateboarding like the world had never seen before, with a crazy departure from traditional skate contest formats, right? In arenas, kind of live theater feel. And I always thought, like, guys like you, man, that must have been so strange to, like, not only not really skate contest, but to do something that was so, as you said, foreign and had a certain level of sophistication that had never really happened before. Like, even if you're not necessarily nervous skating, I could see it, especially in those first couple of years, guys who even did skate contests, it was just so different than anything they had done before. So
you just touched on something that just reminded me of his pitch, right? And why a non-contest skater ended up being a contest skater. Because he was like, look, I know why you don't skate contests. It's like, you don't skate jump ramps and these huge kickers. Like, you're in the streets, right? And in the streets, it's not about a contest run. You're like in a lineup, you try a trick, you run up the stairs, somebody else goes. So he pitched this idea that it's going to be street skating in front of an audience. And you don't have to be gnarly at ramps. Like, it's going to be stairs and rails and ledges. And I was like, okay, that sounds awesome. Like, that's what I skate. And so that's how it began. And that's why I really liked those first 3 years. And then as it started kind of growing, it turned kind of, I think, more into a traditional contest. And then I just got left in the dust. I couldn't keep up like that,
Yeah, no, you're right. And honestly, I think anybody who's met Rob has a similar story or certainly worked with him. I mean, I know from a personal experience, like, I didn't even need a job. I shouldn't say that. I wasn't going to turn down doors, but I just remember Rob presenting similarly to me about, coming over to Street League. And then I met Brian Atlas, not long after that, but just being in the room, for those watching at home, they're like, is Rob really like how he is on TV? He's like that, but even his business acumen is through the roof. Yeah. And I've been in sales meetings with him, just like you, where I'm just like blown. He's the smartest guy in the room, any room you enter. It's so wild.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a blessing to be able to experience it.
Yeah. One of the cool things as your time at Street League, and this was something that I kind of oversaw for those watching. So I was at Street League for a few years, those first few years as well. In order for Rob to justify paying me to announce, I also had to work in the office, because it was like we all had to wear a lot of different hats. And I was not an account manager, a client manager type by trade at all, but I told them I could do it. So they threw a lot of things on me that I probably wasn't qualified to do. One of which I don't know if you can see behind me, there's a little Nyjah figurine there that we sold at Target. And Mikey Taylor was also an action figure that we made and sold at Target. I think you're the only guest we've had on the show that has his own figurine. What is that still? Do you still trip out of? I know I have a Mikey Taylor doll in this house somewhere. I just moved in. I gotta find it in a box somewhere. But talk to us about that experience.
You know what? When it happened, it was more like, oh, that's weird. Now it's actually like crazy. Like my kids, like, my wife bought a bunch of these things. And it's like my kids are playing with dolls of me. It's like, that's so weird, And then like on Instagram, I'll get DMs from people, like photos of their kids with the doll, and it's like, or the little skate figurine. It's a trip, man. I never thought I'd have that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I grew up in the 90s skateboarding. That was all unfathomable. It just wasn't possible. So it's cool. And then kind of touching on what you said, yeah, dude, startup, man. That's the startup world. Anyone who is just willing, you're going to do multiple positions. Yeah. But how fun was that time though? Right.
Oh, it was such a hustle, and I think it started at the top because you wanted to, like, you fed off of Rob's enthusiasm. Then you had Brian Atlas, who he basically had as his president, who works harder than that guy. And it just sort of like trickled down influence wise. And, XGames ended up stealing me away. And for me, that was, the best career decision I could make. And knock on wood, this is the best job I've ever had. But at the same time, I don't think I get here without meeting Rob. Like, Rob was the first person that put me on TV, so I'm forever, I always say I'm forever grateful to Rob to jump starting my career. Whether he likes that or not, that's just the reality of it. But
that's right.
That was such a cool time. And what I also remember about that time was you were really one of the few guys that was at that time of the 24 skaters we had, that was a family man already. You were married. You maybe had just gotten married or been married for a year or two. I don't even think, maybe Jen might've been pregnant one of those years. But how different was it for you, especially those first couple of years? It was just kind of crazy. This tour, going to different cities and even different countries, being one of the few that, was wifed up on these trips.
So actually, Street League was one of the best things that happened to our marriage. And I say that because prior to us being married, dude, I was gone all the time. And like, I wasn't taking Jen on like film missions to like China and Spain. So like, I was just gone constantly. And there was an element to our relationship that she didn't feel like she was a part of my life. And when Street League happened, we had gotten married and then Street League happened. And so I just took her to all the contests. And I remember like, there was this like breakthrough for us. It was like, oh, this is actually what's going on. And I feel like I get to, meet your friends, et cetera, et cetera. So that was actually pretty awesome. Once we had kids, then the real challenge hit. Because like being married there is a difference between being married and dating, but when you have a kid, it's a whole different world. And I remember at the year that Street League and XGames did their thing.
2013, yeah.
2013. My daughter was born in 2012, September 2012. And dude, I had no idea what it was like not to sleep and to just be constantly occupied and have to skate through that. And I remember seeing Chris Cole at the contest, and he looked at me and he just saw it in my face. He was like, dude, you're in a fog, huh? I'm like, dude, I don't know how I'm ever going to skate again. Like, this is insane. And the thing Chris Cole told me, he's like, one, you're going to get used to it and you'll be able to skate again. Don't trip that this is going to be forever. Two, look around. They all look like now, huh? And I was like, dude, it was so true. It was like, wow, like we have such a disadvantage in a sense because we have so much more going on that consumes us and we still have to skate at that level. I'll never forget that he said that.
Yeah, that's great. That's classic Chris Cole. And what a mentor when it came to the family. He was probably the only other guy that was there and brought his family.
That's right.
But that's what I always said, especially when Nyjah really started. And that was about 2011, 2012, when Nyjah really started his ascension. And I would always say that. People would say, what makes Nyjah so good? Well, I would say, one, he was born to do this. He's supremely talented and wickedly consistent. But also at that time, he's 16 years old. Like, this is all he does, and this is all he needs to do. He doesn't have a wife and child that he's going home to every day. He has very few, I don't want to speak for him, but responsibility wise, it was night and day between some of you guys. And that's where I felt like at the time, I think everybody expected, when Street League was taking off and there were such great X Games battles between Sheckler and Chris Cole and P-Rod. And they're like, oh, well, Nyjah's this prodigy. And it was like Nyjah came at the perfect time. And I think you have a really good vantage point of Nyjah Houston because you were there kind of from day one. You guys skated together on DC when he first got on. Did you see it early on with Nyjah? Like, obviously, he had the chops to be a very good contest skater. But did you have any idea, say, a decade ago, that he would become what he's become?
Yeah, we always compared him to Tiger Woods. It was like, it's such a similarity where you have a parent who from a young age is grooming you to become the best. And as far as like a talent standpoint, that was always there for him. The thing that we always debated was, who's he going to become? Right. There's one thing about being a child prodigy, but like, there's a whole different thing, like stepping into, your groove in a sense. And, he's actually gone a little bit further than I thought. Like, and that's not saying to discredit him. I thought he was going to be huge. He's become even larger than that. So I don't know. I think it's actually pretty cool to see. It's like you have like this kid who's like incredible, and then he goes through like kind of dreadlocks. Then he starts, really becoming popular in Street League, and then now he's on a whole different kind of planet. You know. So I think he's kind of found his. I think he's like in his element now.
And I think, you say it, he's even bigger than we thought. And that reality is we've had really, within skateboarding, obviously very famous street skateboarders, but just the discipline itself, it's always been a little difficult to sort of penetrate the mainstream. I think just because of the nuance of it, it's more difficult to translate, to the non-endemic crowd. And Nyjah Houston, whether it's, the aesthetics of his skateboarding, something about it has lifted him above sort of skateboarding into, obviously social media helps a ton. But Nyjah Houston is doing things that we've never seen a street skateboarder do before. That's on and off the board.
Yeah, you actually said that very well. He became bigger in a sense of he's still a core skateboarder, but he's like as famous as like some of the guys we know that did reality shows. Right. It's like he broke through just as a skateboarder still. It's like almost like like a Tony Hawk-esque in a sense before he, but yeah, it's crazy.
What was your very first sponsor, Mikey Taylor? And how old were you?
I was, I was 18. And it was a combo between Venture Trucks, Duff Shoes, and Maple Skateboards. They all called at the same time because I sent out all these sponsor me tapes. So that was my first three as a trio. At
18.
18, yeah, late to the game.
Where you grew up in Newbury Park and that kind of area, Newbury and Thousand Oaks, it's kind of a hotbed for skateboarding. If those that don't know, I mean, there's some really great skateboarders who have skated in those communities. Talk to us about just kind of like growing up in that sort of region and kind of what drew you to skateboarding growing up in those neighborhoods.
So I grew up in a city called Agora, and I grew up with Spanky. Spanky and I have been friends since I can remember. Spanky was like 6 when I met him, way before skateboarding. And so we grew up there. My family ended up moving to Newbury Park when I was, I was 15, 16. And when I moved there, that was when I started seeing great skateboarders. I don't know why, still to this day, Newbury Park had this like group of skaters that were so good. And it was the first time I remember seeing skaters in real life do the same tricks that were being done in the skate videos. And that was like when I realized like, holy crap, you could actually get good at this thing. Like you don't have to be a pro to be really good. And then as I started getting older, that's when we started connecting with P-Rod and Mike Barker and a lot of the guys from the Valley. And then it was like Newbury Park and the Valley crew kind of combined, and we had a 15 man's like skate crew, and it was like 6 of us ended up getting sponsored and then it becoming a career, which was incredibly rare. So I don't know what it was about Newbury Park. It was just, there were great skateboarders that came from there, and then it just kind of, I haven't seen one come out since.
What was it for you? What was the moment? Obviously getting a sponsor is great. And I'm sure you were like most kids growing up where, you get good enough to film a part and then you're sending it out to 30, 40 brands and you hope that somebody bites. Obviously, as you said, you get that trio, you get that Maple and Venture and Duff on board. And you're like, okay, cool, products coming in. But at what point did it become clear to you, like, well, maybe I forego college. Maybe I can actually make some money here and see how long I can run with this. At what point did that kind of spark for you?
So I graduated June of 2001, and in July we were going to go on a skate trip to Europe for City Stars. No, wait a minute. You know what? I have my years wrong. Duff's Maple Venture was 17. 18, I got on City Stars, and then the first European trip happened that summer. Sorry. So, dude, it was right away I had to make the decision. I thought I was going to go to college that following September. And, now I have a company who is giving me the opportunity to travel. I had gotten my first ad my senior year in high school. And I kind of had to make the decision. I thought that was it, but I just thought it was going to be limited. I thought I was only going to be skating for like a few years. And then I was going to go back and go to college. And then I hit a point around, right around DVS when I got my first shoe where I was like, wow, this could actually go a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, that's really, that's interesting. So where were you in at any college? Were you going to go, did you have something in mind? Were you going to go the JUCO route? Like where did you want to go to school after high school?
You know what? It's so funny, man, how your plan changes, right? I always had this idea. I was like, okay, I really thought I was going to go to law school, right? And it was so dumb. I probably would have hated it, but I just loved arguing. But I liked the whole conversation element to it, right? So I pick up skateboarding at 13, become completely obsessed with it. I just don't want it to end. My mom and dad want me to get a job right around 16. I don't want to stop skating. So I convinced them that if I figure out how to get product and have companies give me free stuff, I won't have to work. It takes me till about 17 till that happens. Then I'm getting free stuff. And so I think I just kept prolonging this idea that I didn't want to stop skating. And then once I got my first ad and then the trip was there, I think that whole experience kind of, I wasn't even thinking about college. I was still hanging on to the idea that I once had, that that's what I had to do. If that makes any sense. So no, I didn't even have the college picked out. I was going to skate for a few years.
Yeah, I think at that time too, because you're talking, early 2000s. Obviously, the goal is if you're good enough to get some sponsors and have some monthly cash rolling in, what a dream. But the idea of making a career out of it, it's like for every Eric Costin, there was 1,000, 10,000 other guys that might have gotten an ad here or there. But maybe had, a 5 to 7 year window of skating professionally. And then they kind of faded away into the background. So it makes sense that you would sort of think in those parameters, only to really see it last a couple of decades, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. And remember too, it's like, when I started getting paid, dude, I was making like $600 a month. And it was like, this is the best thing ever, right? It was just like this, oh my gosh, I can actually make money skateboarding. It didn't become significant enough to like actually live for years down the road. So there was a gap there as well. So
talk to me then about your sort of spending habits and realizing, as you said, $600 still, if you're 18, 19 years old, $600 a month, I mean, shoot, I could think of some things I would be doing with $600. So at what point did it go for you from being like cash in my pocket, cash to burn versus like all of a sudden philosophically like, what can I do with this money to kind of like prolong the game for me?
So, dude, in the beginning, I wasn't making enough to even really like have to worry about taxes, right? I remember I got on S And then Kareem helped me negotiate my S deal, and he got me $2,500 a month. And I remember going, oh my gosh, this is crazy, right? This is psychotic. No experience with taxes. I remember that year I had to pay, I paid taxes at the end of the year, and it was all of my savings just gone. And I remember going, what in the hell just happened to me? And then that next year, I think that was like 1920 is when I was introduced to Randy. And that's when it was like, okay, dude, this is how this works. You know, you kind of need to figure out how to make more money. You know, that was like the first concept. And as we start making more money, I want you to basically live as if you're broke, right? Like there's this philosophy that the Dave Ramsey talks about. It's like the snowball effect for people that are getting out of debt. He pretty much put me on that same strategy, but it wasn't to get me out of debt. It was to get me more money to actually invest in things, because I just didn't make enough to participate back then. So I was living off, I don't know, 20% of my income. And the rest of it at that time was really just building a cash reserve. And then once I had a cash reserve, then I started participating in investments. But I remember him telling me about early things like, you know, yeah, spend less than you make, pay yourself first, so that it was automatically going towards my savings, investing in myself. Gosh, I'm trying to think of all the other ones, man. There were so many in the beginning.
Was it different for me? Yeah.
A big one for me actually is living off the same expenses as I started making more money. Like he always told me that, like, dude, you're going to make more money. And where everyone goes wrong, and it's going to be natural, is you're going to want to spend more. If you can stay on the same income and make more, the spread just increases, and then you have more opportunity to invest. So it was really like delay gratification, be disciplined, look around at P-Rod rolling around in Mercedes, and don't trip. Stay focused on your Honda Civic. That's paid off, dude. You know?
That's exactly where I was going with that. Obviously, you and Paul have been, you know, such good friends for so long. Now, Paul obviously has made a lot of money off of his sponsorship deals, essentially, you know, built Nike SB. But I think about, you know, rolling around with Paul and seeing him, you know, getting those flashy vehicles and stuff like that. And that never, I mean, were there points where you're like, shoot, man, just like, I got to do me maybe on some depreciating asset, just maybe one, or were you just like straight and narrow the whole time?
No, I mean, I said no, but it wasn't easy no's. I mean, that was, dude, especially being that young and looking around, being a skater, I'm competitive, seeing your friends, like, you know, buying nice things. That was hard for me. And it was more like on an insecurity level, truthfully. It was like, you know, people look at them and think they're successful, and people look at me and don't think I'm successful. So it wasn't even a good argument to begin with. But I remember every time I would try to like convince myself, like, okay, it's time, I'm gonna buy this, I'd call Randy. And how I had it structured, dude, I didn't even see money, man. It's like sponsors went straight into my business account. Business account had all dollars flowing through. I had a allowance essentially that I was living off of. So if I ever wanted to purchase anything, I had to call Randy. Randy, this is what I'm thinking. And anytime I called him and it was dumb, he's like, Mikey, stay focused. Stay focused on where we're headed. Don't get caught up in this. So I had a good, I had somebody good to check me when I was thinking foolishly.
Do you have, and during this period, or even, you know, now, do you have skateboarders currently that are like reaching out to you asking for financial advice? Are you somebody's Randy?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So Randy's, this is his business. He's a financial advisor, started his own firm. It's a multifamily office. He is a registered advisor. I am not a registered advisor. I like business. This was like a hybrid for me to create a business, and our business is in investing. And Randy's actually one of my partners in our company. So there is that as well. As far as skaters go, that has probably been the coolest thing for me, is people reaching out that I would have never thought they would hit me up asking, dude, how do I get out? I'm in this amount of debt. What's the best way to get out of this debt? How do I even invest in things? That has been by far the best experience to this whole thing. So I would say from the content we're creating, I'm like Randy in a sense. As far as me managing your portfolio, that is not what I do.
Got it. Okay. So now, obviously, day to day for you, running a business, you know, obviously people coming, investing money, and on the real estate side, like, what's a day to day for you still being, present in skateboarding? Like, what does your day to day look like now?
So I am not that present skateboarding. That's the challenge to it. Day to day for me, and it just you saying that when you were back at Street League reminded me a lot of our situation. So our company's 3 years old. So we are also in a scenario where we're all wearing a lot of different hats. So for me, my day-to-day changes really based on if we're in the middle of a capital raise or not. If we're in the middle of a capital raise, I'm spending more time meeting with potential investors. It's more of a sales process. If there's no capital raising process, day to day, I oversee pretty much all of the marketing, working with our CEO a lot as far as current projects, management on all our projects, leads on deals, relationships with brokers, and then a lot of time on investor relations as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's the grown-up stuff, man. That's
totally. So then trying to find time to skate, that's been the biggest challenge to this whole thing.
Right. Well, Mikey, I really appreciate the time, man. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but one thing I am curious on, obviously we talked about Street League and all that, which is cool. Growing up in Southern California, as you did, X Games was in LA for 10 plus years, I think 11 years total. Southern California will always be the hotbed of action sports and certainly skateboarding. What did it mean to you that year, 2013, Street League and X Games partnered up together? It was officially dubbed Street League at X Games, but you that year, and I think even in the 2014, possibly in Austin, I can't recall, but you did skate. You skated at X Games. I have to imagine, competing at X Games had to have been, if not a dream, a pretty surreal moment for an LA kid.
You know what? The best thing about it was like, I wasn't a contest skater, right? I went 10 years and didn't skate a contest. So to be in my late 20s, skating my first contest and then to like go, holy crap, like not only did I skate X Games, that year I made the finals. So it was like, I finaled at one of these things. And then now the most common question asked from people who aren't skateboarders when they hear that you were a pro skateboarder, did you ever skate X Games? I did. And now I can say the best I did, I got 6th place one year. They're like, what? That's so sick.
I actually remember that contest. That was in Barcelona. And that was still for me, from top to bottom, that might be my favorite skate contest that I've ever been a part of. You skated out of your mind. That was amazing. It was a great course. Manny Santiago skated really well, and then Nyjah and P-Rod had like one of the most epic showdowns you've ever seen. So that was such a neat contest to be there for, and I'm so glad that was like your best finish, because that one was fun.
That was such a fun year. And you just said something that just reminded me of this story. I'll tell you real quick. When we were trying to figure out St. Archer, we were driving to other breweries to talk to them about doing a contract brew where they would make our beer for us and we would just oversee the marketing of it. And I remember we went to one brewery. It was me, Paul, and Josh. And he's like, so you guys are pro skateboarders? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, you ever skated X Games? And Paul was like, yeah, I actually won twice. He was like, what the? So dude, even, people in the beer industry back then, like the X Games, it's a high standard.
That's the clout, baby. Yeah. No matter what, no matter where you are in the world, it's so X Games gets brought up.
If you're going to start a company, make sure you're doing it with somebody who has an X Games gold medal.
or at least competed in it. Yeah. That's
right.
Amazing. That's amazing that P-Rod can just drop that. Yeah, no, I've won it a couple times. Dude, Mikey, this was an amazing trip down memory lane. And also, I do want to leave your parting shot, because we asked you at the beginning of the hot box, your financial advice that you would give anybody. As we sort of, I think, hopefully we're kind of, rounding third here as far as the pandemic is concerned. And I hope, that we're doing the smart thing and that our leaders are understanding what we need to do to kind of get us back up and running, obviously get this disease under control. But knowing sort of maybe the uncertainty economically speaking, I think for maybe some of our fans or viewers watching, like, what's your rough projection maybe for the end of the year, and how we should be handling our cash?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have?
Yeah. That you like that final question?
Okay, there's a few things to it. I'll try to make it more broad just because of time. Look, I think this is going to be one of the greatest wealth building moments of our lifetime. I really do believe that. I think the next 10 years are going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of new things happen. I think you're going to see a creation moment like we saw in 2009, 2010 of some of the greatest tech companies that we know today. I think there's going to be a massive transfer of wealth that happens. And the people that ultimately can see where the opportunity lies are the ones that are going to do pretty well here. And I'm gonna also say, because this is the challenge about uncertain times, is in uncertainty there's also a lot of pain. So there is what we're going to face where this is going to be hard for a lot of people. So I don't want to say it as if there's, oh yeah, dude, we're just going to make a shitload of money and everybody else just screw you. I think this is a moment to look for opportunity, but also be very vocal in educating those that don't know what's happening, not to panic, not to sell everything off. Basically look at where the opportunity lies, make sure you have cash to participate in opportunity, and don't try not to complain and blame your scenario on what's happening around us. That's not going to do any good for you. Really, even if it's challenging, you got to start looking at what's going to come from this. What can I create that is going to succeed through the disruption factor of what we're facing right now? And where I don't want to go with this, but I don't know how not to say it, we might be seeing a lot of inflation as well, maybe more than we've ever seen. So there is going to be an element where typically saving is pretty good for this moment, so that you're sitting on cash so that you can deploy an opportunity. This is going to be a moment where the savers, I think, are going to get hurt, and you're really going to have to look at getting your money into assets that can keep up with inflation, so that our money just isn't worth anything. We don't want that either. So there's going to be something that happens through all this. I think we can go even more broad and say we might be seeing a digital currency or a cashless system here sooner than I thought. Could be a scenario, but this is all speculation. Maybe for another time.
Next gen Bitcoin. Yeah, let's talk offline. Mikey, dude, thank you so much, man. This has been really, really special, and it's really good to catch up with you, my friend. But all the best, and thank you not only for sharing your story, but some little nuggets that maybe we can take with us financially as we move forward, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, homie.
Bye, brother.